Okay, so I'm going to show you how to take a patch that you've created in a device in Reason, export it and turn it into a multi-sample that you can then re-import into the NNXT. I've set it up so that I have my live track here, and I have an NNXT track and a subtractor track, and then a couple of audio tracks. Over in Reason, I have a subtractor sound that I've created, and I put it in a combinator. And then I also have an NNXT that has no sound patched into it at all. Now, if you want a sample to sound realistic, you have to multi-sample it. If we just use one sample and then play it across the entire keyboard, as it starts to transpose, it will start to sound very unnatural. So what we have to do is we multi-sample, we record over the entire range of the keyboard, but we don't have to record every note. All we need to record is maybe 4 notes per octave. So that'll be a diminished chord, and so I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. Now I don't need to go ahead and record every octave. I can just use some copy and paste things to do. So first thing I want to do is I want to quantize this. So we'll right click and select quantize, and we get it all there. So that looks pretty good. It's all selected, so now Command D will let me duplicate it. Okay. And you can see that we're at a different time there. And then we can use Shift and the up arrow to move it up an octave. And so I'll just keep doing that until I have 5 octaves here. Okay, let's go ahead and select all of that again and make sure that we've got it quantized better. Okay, and we can then zoom in so that we can see all of it, and we'll move this up just a little bit too so that we can see. So here's our entire sample. I'm going to turn loop off so that it doesn't loop, so it only plays back once. Okay, so our next step is going to be to convert this into audio. The first thing I need to do, though, is I need to click on this and set it so that the end of this loop is here. And I don't want it to be looping, so if this is on, make sure you turn that off. Okay, and I'm going to have this ready to play. Now I'm going to just turn it off here. And then to record the audio, what I'm going to do is I have to set the audio to come from the subtractor track. And record enable this track, and then I'm going to click record. And so we've recorded our clip. So what we have right now is one long audio track. This doesn't help us much in our sampler. What we need is each one of these notes to be a separate file. Now, most DAWs have the ability to take an audio file, slice it up, and export it as separate files, but Live isn't one of them. So we're going to have to fool it into doing it. And there is a workaround, and it's really not that difficult. We're going to use something called launch mode and follow actions. Okay? If it's not shown, you click on this little L and it'll bring up launch mode. We're going to set this to legato, and the follow action is set so that the action is going to happen every 1 measure, because that's how long our notes are. This is measure, beats, and 16th notes. And then what we're going to have happen here is we're going to set it up so that play again, it will basically re-trigger this clip, but because it's in legato mode, it's going to continue on from where it was rather than going back to the beginning every time. So now when we click record here, it's going to record in the arrangement view 1 measure clips. So let's go ahead and do that. So you can see that it's recording one measure clips right there. Okay, so now we have one measure clips for each one of those notes. So what I'm going to do now is turn that little button off so that I can select them all. I'm going to grab them. Actually, I just want that track. There we go. And so then I'm going to hold on to them. Got my mouse button held. Press the tab key, and I'm going to drag them into a new track. Go ahead and load that. And so you can see that each one of these separate clips is in a track. And then I'm going to right click and I'm going to select freeze track. And so what it's going to do now is it's going to create individual files for each one of those. So if you click on current project and go to samples, that's what processed, freeze, you can see that here are all of our exported files. So what you want to do now is locate the file for this project. Okay, and it's probably in your music folder under Ableton. And if you haven't named the project, and I haven't, this is now simply just a temp project, and you just kind of go down, and so here it is in this freeze section. Now you'll notice that there's a WAV file and an ASD file. That's an analyzed file for Ableton that makes it a little easier to work with. So what we want to do is go ahead and click kind so that we only see those. And you can see that we have 21 files. Okay, so that's good. All right, so we're going to go ahead and go into Reason. And now we're going to start working with the NNXT. Okay, so here we are in the NNXT. And what we've done is I've opened up the programmer. And what I want to do is I want to load samples. And so you click on the Browse Sample button and then navigate to the Ableton project folder and find those freeze files. Now let's just pull in just one of the files so you can hear what the problem is by just loading one of those files. So actually here I'll load number 1 here. Okay, and now you can see it's mapped across the entire keyboard range. And so if I start to play, as it goes up, it gets short. Each one of these gets shorter because what's essentially happening is the sample is playing back faster. And so also the vibrato gets rather strange. Okay, so that doesn't work at all for us. So I'm going to delete that. And I'm going to select all of them. And then load them in. Now when we play this, we got this monstrous diminished chord going on. It's kind of fun, actually. But that's not going to work for us either. What we want to do is we want to have an individual sample on each one of the keys. And so we're going to right-click and use the set notes, root notes from pitch detection. And so now Reason will listen to these and figure out what pitch these were. And then we're going to go in and we're going to tell it to auto map the zones. And now you can see that there's one sample on most of these. And there we have a multi-sample. Now from here, you can go ahead and edit the sample just like you would in any other synthesizer. We have this is essentially your oscillator. This is your sound source. And then you'll notice that we have an amp envelope, we have a mod envelope, we have some LFOs, we have some filters, and you can change the sound of this any way you like. If the multisample had different samples where it wasn't supposed to sound like the same instrument, you can actually select each one and have different settings for each one of the samples. But since this is supposed to sound unified, it's better to select all and then make any adjustments that you decide to make. So we're listening to this, and maybe we'd like the filter frequency to be a little better, different. Okay. And so you can adjust the filter, and you can make any adjustments you want, just like you would in any other synthesizer.